Okay, so when Hollywood speaks up, usually it's, maybe an award speech, something polished.
Right.
But recently, something pretty different happened. We're talking over 1,200 industry figures. Big names.
Huge names, actors, directors, producers, execs. Really a massive mobilization.
And they all signed this open letter.
Yeah.
One voice.
Exactly. It was quite a moment, not your usual celebrity endorsement. This was aimed directly at rejecting calls to boycott Israeli films.
And the sources we've looked at, they really dive into the cultural, the political, the artistic stuff packed into this.
Absolutely. There's a lot layered in there.
So our mission here for this deep dive is to unpack that. We want to figure out what this huge industry move actually means. Why should you care? And what does it tell you about art versus politics right now?
And it really started because of this pushback, this defense of art against some pretty intense pressure.
Yeah, let's get into that context. What actually sparked this letter?
Well, for a while now, there's been growing pressure. Activist groups have been pushing hard.
Pushing festivals, streamers.
Yeah, exactly. Major festivals, distributors, streaming platforms, urging them to boycott Israeli films specifically.
As a form of political protest, right?
Yeah.
Against the Israeli government's actions.
That's the argument from the activist side. Yes. Use cultural platforms or deny them as leverage. It's a political tool.
Okay, so that's the call for the boycott. But the reaction, this letter from 1,200 people, that's what we need to unpack. What's their core counter-argument?
Fundamentally, it boils down to the individual creator. The letter argues that a blanket boycott based on nationality, it unfairly punishes individual filmmakers.
Right, not the government, but the actual people making the movies.
Exactly. And here's the nuance they stress. Many of these filmmakers might actually be critical of their own government, some very openly critical. So boycotting them means you could be silencing voices that offer internal critique, voices that maybe we should be hearing.
So the signatories are essentially saying, if you boycott a film just because the director is Israeli, regardless of what the film is actually about, that's just censorship.
That's precisely the word they use. They frame it as political censorship, plain and simple, because it's based on the passport, not the art itself.
Okay.
And the kind of slogan or the core message you hear coming through is art should never be collateral damage in political battles.
Powerful statement.
It is. They're trying to draw a line based on historical precedent, they'd argue, saying that storytelling itself needs protection, even when the politics around it get really heated and difficult.
That really leads us straight into the first big idea or hypothesis behind why so many people sign this. It feels like they're drawing a line in the sand.
Exactly. Hypothesis one is all about principle.
The idea that art has to be independent. It has to be separate from, whatever's happening geopolitically on the world stage, even if it's brutal.
It's asserting that principle over the specific policy debate. It really echoes that older idea. We don't boycott artists, we debate ideas. It's a defense of that sort of global, liberal ideal for creativity.
And under this view, cinema's role is actually vital, right? It should be the place where we can explore the tough stuff. Identity, conflict, oppression.
That's the argument. That cinema is precisely where these difficult conversations should happen, with nuance, hopefully. Silencing a whole national cinema shuts down that potential dialogue.
Okay, but what about the fear? The sources mentioned this slippery slope idea. Is that just theoretical?
Oh, it's definitely not just theoretical for them. It feels quite pragmatic, actually. It's a real fear within the industry.
What's the specific fear?
The fear is, okay, if a boycott based on nationality works now against Israeli films, where does it stop? What's the next target?
The precedent.
Exactly. They worry it sets a dangerous international precedent. If this government's actions warrant boycotting its artists, what about Russian films because of Ukraine? Or Chinese films over human rights? Or, even American films if U.S. foreign policy becomes unpopular somewhere?
Right. Depending on the political winds, any country's filmmakers could be next.
That's the concern. So this mobilization, you could argue, is maybe less about endorsing Israel specifically and much more about protecting the entire global framework for making and distributing films.
Protecting the system itself.
Yes. The minute one politically motivated, nationality-based boycott succeeds, they worry it opens a Pandora's box. It could destabilize the whole international market they depend on.
Okay, so that fear, that concern for the structure, that takes us from the high principle of free expression to something maybe more practical. Hypothesis 2, protecting the ecosystem.
That's right. If principle is one side, pragmatism is definitely the other. Film is a global business. Billions of dollars, international collaboration.
It relies on that free flow.
Completely. And think about the major festivals. Cannes, Venice, Sundance, their whole brand is built on being showcases for world cinema.
And Israeli films, as the sources point out, they often do well there, right? Win awards, get
Yeah.
critical acclaim. Maybe not huge blockbusters always, but significant artistically.
They are. They contribute significantly to that world cinema landscape. So cutting them out doesn't just hurt the filmmakers. Arguably, it damages the reputation and integrity of the festivals themselves.
They're claimed to being a neutral ground for art.
Precisely. Plus, the industry depends heavily on international co-productions, distribution deals. A blanket nationality boycott is just bad for business, potentially disastrous. If it's Israeli films today, maybe tomorrow it affects deals with, say, Korean filmmakers or Mexican studios or Indian distributors.
The precedent is toxic for the global business model.
Oh.
Okay, so we have free expression protecting the ecosystem. But there's a third layer too, right? Something more, maybe emotional.
Yes. Hypothesis 3. Creative solidarity. It sounds a bit idealistic, maybe, but Hollywood often sees itself as this global family of storytellers.
A tribe, almost.
Kind of, yeah. And this letter sends a message. We stand with our colleagues, even if their government is doing things people find deeply controversial. It's like an institutional hug for the creative class.
Defending their own.
Defending their peers, with the understanding that the pressures a filmmaker faces in Tel Aviv today could be the pressures one faces in London or LA tomorrow.
And you see that with some of the names who signed, like Liev Schreiber or Debra, people known for being quite vocal on other issues.
Right. Their involvement seems designed to underline a consistency argument. The idea is, if you believe in free speech, you have to defend it universally. For everyone, across the board. Otherwise, the principle itself kind of falls apart.
So they're trying to frame it as being about the process of creation, the right to create, not about the specific politics involved.
That's the line they're trying to hold, defending the artist, not the state.
Which is a necessary line for them. Because, and this is where it gets really complicated, this letter has not landed without controversy. There's significant criticism.
Oh, absolutely. And we have to look at that impartially, because not everyone buys the art is separate argument. Not at all.
What's the main thrust of the criticism?
Well, the critics argue that by pushing back against the boycott, these Hollywood figures are, maybe unintentionally, maybe not, giving political or ethical cover to a government that's being accused of very serious human rights violations.
So it's an ethical challenge, the idea that you can't separate the art from the political reality in this case.
Exactly. For the activists calling for the boycott, the stance is pretty stark. In situations of severe conflict or alleged oppression, staying neutral isn't neutral. It's actually taking a side. It's complicity.
Remaining neutral is complicity. That's the counter-argument.
That's the core of it. They see the letter as essentially an excuse, a way for Hollywood to avoid taking what they see as a necessary moral stand.
And does that tie into questions about sincerity? Like, is this really about principle or maybe self-interest?
That's definitely part of the critique you hear. The argument goes, is Hollywood mobilizing now because this specific boycott threat could set a precedent that might one day hit their bottom line? You know, if U.S. policy becomes globally contentious.
Protecting their own future market access.
Potentially. And critics point to perceived inconsistencies. They ask, where was this massive unified defense when other artists or groups faced deplatforming for different reasons in the past?
The charge is selective outrage, basically.
Right, that they only defend the principle this fiercely when it directly threatens the smooth functioning of the global film market they rely on. It raises questions about whether it's pure principle or pragmatic self-preservation dressed up as principle.
That tension is really palpable.
Yeah.
And it makes you zoom out, doesn't it, to this bigger struggle we see everywhere now between art and activism.
It really does. That's the fundamental conflict playing out here, and it defines so much of the cultural landscape today.
So you've got these two camps, almost. Side A, the activists, saying cinema must be politically responsible. It has a moral duty, and in times of crisis, it has to pick a side. Art as a tool for justice.
Right. Moral clarity above all else, even artistic access.
And side B, the letter signatories, arguing that cinema needs to be a neutral platform. Not that the films themselves are neutral, they should tackle tough issues, but the space should be open. All perspectives, even difficult ones, should be allowed, debated, shown. without instant political shutdown.
The platform needs to be protected even if the content is challenging.
And this fight over the platform, not just the content, that's probably going to shape things going forward, right?
Yeah.
Festivals, distribution, awards.
It seems very likely. The industry is clearly trying to firewall itself against a level of politicization that they see as fundamentally damaging to the creative process itself.
So bringing it back to you, the listener, what's the core takeaway from all this?
I think the main point the signatories want to convey is that these kinds of boycotts targeting an entire national cinema are blunt instruments, often counterproductive.
Why counterproductive?
Because, as they argue, you often end up silencing the very voices within that nation who might be offering criticism, nuance, alternative views, the artists who are pushing boundaries internally.
So you shut down the internal debate that outsiders might want to hear.
Potentially, yes. You might only hear the official lines because the dissenting artists can't get their work seen internationally.
So defending the screening of Israeli films isn't the same as endorsing Israeli government policy. That's the distinction they're fighting for.
That's the critical distinction, yes. Defending the conversation, not the policy. And they believe that distinction is vital if, global art is going to navigate this incredibly polarized era.
It's a huge statement from over 1,200 people trying to carve out that space.
It really is. A significant moment in how the creative industries are trying to position themselves in relation to global politics.
Absolutely. Which leaves us with a final thought, something for you to chew on, building on these sources. In a world where politics seems to be polarizing absolutely everything, maybe defending art as its own separate space, its own sphere, maybe that's actually one of the most radical things you can do right now.
Is that separation possible or even desirable?
That's the big question, isn't it? Where do you personally draw that line between the moral demands of the moment and the need for artistic freedom? It's tough.
Attention will definitely keep seeing.
Thanks for digging into this with us today.
Always interesting to unpack these complex layers.